I'm joined by Mickey Burke to talk about the Leinster Football Championship and the games that happened over the weekend. Dublin beat Laois 223 to 7 points. That was fairly comprehensive throughout the whole game. It never really looked like it was in doubt. Of course, Dublin didn't put up a huge scoreline until it took a while for that. But Meath 5-9, Kildare 15 points, having been 6 points down at half time. You must have been kind of worried looking on, Mickey.
Was Shane, yeah, first half, old cliche game of two halves. First half, I thought we were being cut apart very easily. Thought Kildare were playing really slick stuff. Really pressed us on our own kickouts, and it wasn't looking good. We seem to be really slow starters. It's one thing I've noticed during the National League as well, for whatever reason, and it's something we'll definitely have to improve on for the Leinster final. But improved dramatically in the second half, and I suppose the 2 goals in 2 minutes at the start of the second half just kind of, that gap was closed immediately at 6 points. But yeah, it's hard to judge. It really is hard to judge where we're at if we're, it's a really, really hard game to read, I thought.
But do you feel like this Meath team is starting to move in the direction, a really positive direction, and you need to come through something like that where you're put to the pin of your collar to, prepare you for Dublin? There's no point in walking through someone like Kildare and having a handy win against Wicklow the week before. You probably needed a test of character.
Definitely did, and the boys needed a test, and that game was a must win for us as a county, because we were on a serious kind of a losing streak bar the Wicklow game, okay, but the players and Andy, we had to win that game by hook or by crook, because we had been on a serious run of losses, probably going back the whole way back to the qualifiers last year against Clare. So it was vitally important, and but the boys will know, there's another animal coming, unfortunately, down the road, but you can only beat what's put in front of you. First half, like I said, was very sloppy, slow start. Kildare were playing all the football, but in fairness, the boys came out and hit Kildare like a ton of bricks in the second half. So that's all you can do,
Yeah, and it was Matthew Costello's goal that got the thing moving again, and a lovely pass in by Cillian O'Sullivan. Or no, sorry, it was Jordan Morris actually, who's scored a hat-trick the last day against Wicklow, albeit 2 of them were penalties. Came up with 1-1 here again. What do you think changed at half-time?
I just think the lads probably played with a bit more pace. We were going laterally a lot with the ball in the first half. I thought our full back line looked very isolated. But you have to credit a lot of the young guys. I know Jordy Morris got the ideal debut, scoring a hat-trick in his first game. But I thought he showed well for the ball. Like, it was his first. You got to take into consideration a lot of these guys' first game playing senior football in Croke Park. I thought Matthew Costello was excellent. Aside from the goal, everyone will look at the goals, but I thought he came out with some brilliant balls. Like, he was going for 1-2s all the time coming out of defence. And what I have to say about Meath is it's a very, very athletic side. It's a very quick side. You see some of the runners coming out from deep, even David Toner, Seamus Lavin, we all know about Cillian, but when these guys get motoring, they're very, 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 very pacey and very athletic team, and that's one thing that you need against Dublin.
What sort of changes would you have seen in the few years since Andy McEntee came in? Took Ballyboden to an All-Ireland title, so obviously he has a pedigree there. But what has changed with Meath? Because just broadly speaking, looking on, they look to me like a team that's athletically in a completely different position than they were a couple of seasons ago.
Yeah, for some reason, I don't know why. Maybe, like, I'm thinking back to 2015-16, we would have always been said maybe Meath don't look that fit. Now, by God, when we were in training, it certainly felt like you were being put through your paces. But there's no doubt, since Andy came in, it's gone to a whole new level. Like, Andy's very into body composition. He's very, very into stats as regards, how many Ks you run, how many sprints you do, GPS. Your weights are constantly being analysed and I suppose critiqued, how much you bench press and how much you squat. And, he's looking to push you all the time, constantly. And that's in training as well. So I suppose Andy has created a culture where there's no hiding place in any of them things. and John Coughlin came in, who was an Olympic sprint coach. He was with China, and he was with Andy with Ballyboden. So you can see by the conditioning of Meath and of the last 3 years that the team is in really, really physically great condition, and that certainly helps as a starting point.
Yeah, because even if you go back to the Leinster final last year, I know it was a different type of forward, but you had a small inside forward. This time you've got Shane Walsh, who's he's a young kid, but he's a big guy, and the same with Thomas O'Reilly as well. Jordan Morris is a bull of a young fella as well, and then coming through the middle, Ronan Jones is like his first option seems to be turn and run at defences. Brian Menton, we know, can do that as well. So from every position, it seems like you have lads that Andy is trying to develop into line breakers.
Yeah, definitely. And like Walsh, he's from down the road. He's from down the road here from me in Enfield. And I was only talking to someone about him recently. He's probably the best developed young man I've ever seen playing football. Like last year, he came on. He was only 18 years of age after doing his leaving cert. Okay, he might have been repeating his leaving, I think, but he was only 18. He's only 19 now. He looks like a fully grown man. Same with Jordy Morris. And like, just going back to Meath underage structures, we probably were slow in kind of, our minors doing weights and under 17s kind of doing S&C. And you can now see with Matthew Costello coming in, Jordy Morris coming in, and these younger guys, Shane Walsh, that, it's not a jump all of a sudden physically, that they've done that little bit of kind of pre-season or senior football conditioning. So that's certainly a help. But I think our fitness and S&C has certainly improved over the last 3 or 4 years since Andy's come in. Well, it's definitely gone to another level.
Yeah, and where was the mood at a couple of years ago when, Dublin were battering teams well, as they still are for the most part? But did it feel like you were a world away? Paddy O'Rourke stepped away from it because he just kind of felt like there wasn't the prospects of bridging the gap with Dublin. Like, broadly speaking, did it feel that way to a lot of people in the panel, or was he an outlier?
Honestly, it was something. Maybe it was just internally in Paddy. Maybe like Paddy played a good deal of football for me as well. He was in since he was a young fella, and maybe he just said, "Look, I've done my time. I've done enough." For me, I always loved putting on the jersey, and it didn't matter what time of the year it was. Honestly, it wasn't. Like, people are very quick to forget that Dublin didn't really beat us from 1985 or 86 until 2001 or 2. These things go in cycles, and I've no doubt that it will end at some stage. I'm not going to say it's going to end on Saturday night, but no, it wasn't. It wasn't something that was talked about greatly. We weren't stupid to think we were up against a monster, and everyone knew that. One of the best teams of all time, that probably the best team of all time. It's been proven, winning 5 All-Irelands. But for me, going back every year, pre-season training, I wasn't going, oh my God, we've Dublin coming down the line. No, you were hoping to catch them on a bad day, and you were hoping to have a very good day. And
like you were saying just before, you're disappointed to not be involved anymore at this stage. So it's tough to watch on as the team is developing.
Oh, it is, yeah. Like, to be honest, yesterday was my first time sitting down watching the full game since I haven't been part of the panel. Andy didn't call me in at the start of the year, really. That's the long and short of it. And it hurts. I'm not going to say anything else. It does. It hurts big time. I miss it. I was in a bubble since I was 18 until 34. But I had a great run of it. And I'm, like I said, I'm still good mates with a lot of the boys in there, and I'm a Meath man, and I want Meath to win and to get back at the top table again. But it was a bit different watching yesterday, I must admit. All right, but like I said, I really want Meath to get back and start winning.
Yeah, and if Meath are to beat Dublin, it feels like pretty much everything's going to have to go right, and you can't afford to have a slow first half. And last year, I felt you did an awful lot right, even though you only scored a point in the first half. It was still only 4 or 5 points to 1. The full backline was winning an awful lot of 50-50 ball. I thought Conor McGill was brilliant. What needs to happen for me to somehow make this happen, or at the very least come out with an awful lot of credit?
I suppose I know from Andy and from the players that moral victories are kind of the boys don't want a slap in the back for just kind of losing by maybe 6 or 7 points or something like this. again, Dublin are probably going to have a bit of an off day. They don't look like. I still think that they can be caught this year. I still really think that whether it's going to be us or not, I'm not so sure. But I suppose defensively we've got to be sound. The full back line are going to have to. The full back line were brilliant last year, and they're going to have a monstrous day again with Conor Callaghan and Paddy Small and all these guys up there, Dean Rock. Try and keep the free count down, and vary our game between our pacey running game with the like of Kyogi and Mento bombing forward, and also try and kick it in maybe to Shane Walsh and to Jordy Morris, and I think you need different types of game plans to beat Dublin. You can't just have a running game because they'll be able to get men back. You need to vary your game. It could be a worry because I think Dublin are going to put a big press on our kick out, and at times in the first half it looked like we were really struggling to get the ball out. But again, look, it's Andy has options there to try different things.
And how difficult is it to find a keeper? I think it's something like 11 keepers that Andy has gone through in his tenure. Marcus Brennan is in there at the moment. I think he made a little mistake against Dublin at Parnell Park in the league as well, which obviously won't do his confidence any good coming in against the massive press that you're expecting. So how tough is it to find the right goalkeeper, and can Marcus learn from that?
Yeah, I suppose for years we were kind of spoiled in Meath for goalies. We had Brendan Murphy and we had Paddy and we had David Gallagher and Cormac Sullivan, all guys who played for Ireland. Brenny Murphy was a professional soccer player, so we had these class keepers. And Andy he trawled the county looking for different guys to do different jobs. I suppose Andy was toying with the idea of an outfielder playing in goals. He tried Barry Dardis in goals. I still think Marky's absolutely brilliant. I really, really trust him when the ball goes back to him. He's so confident on the ball. But Dublin, I think, are going to hone in on that. And if Marky doesn't have options out the field, he's going to be in trouble. But no, I have a lot of time for Mark. He's a great guy and a top keeper.
Absolutely. And Dublin then, is there something that you're more worried about than other, or is it just their overall kind of the way they seem to be just interchangeable, the way everyone's a threat? I mean, just even reflecting on the win over Laois, Kieran Kilkenny hit 1-4, beautiful little sort of volley on the ground, soccer style. Cormac Costello came in, he's had 7 points. Brian Fenton with 4, Niall Scully with 3, Dean Rock with a few, Bugler with a lovely goal, great pace in behind. And then the fact that Conor Callaghan and Paddy Small just a point each as well, there's probably more to be expected from them too. So they kind of have threats everywhere.
They do. They have threats everywhere. James McCarthy's back. I think he's probably the best footballer in the last decade. Well, he's definitely in the top 2 or 3. Consistency, a man for all seasons. Look, they just have an array of talent. They're physically very, very big. Again, athletically, Fenton, watching him yesterday, he just glides by players. He's tough, he's dirty, he can catch ball, he's brilliant on the ball, he can kick points. Mento and Jonesy are going to have two huge games in the middle of the field for us. Trying to ruffle Stephen Cluxton down the far end of the field as well as another, to just get so many kickouts away. And when you have a goalie who's able to kind of retain possession all the time, it's going to be tough, but it's not beyond the bounds of possibility. But Dublin look fairly menacing. What was it? Was it 222 or 223 or something like that against Laois?
Yeah.
It's going to be tough, but Meath against Dublin, local derby. It's all to play for, and the boys have a free swing. No one's expecting anything really out of us. Everyone's going to think that Dublin are going to win, probably a bit similar to Kerry and Cork. So the lads have a free swing at it.
Yeah, and I suppose one of the most ominous things was Dublin bringing on Paul Mannion, Cormac Costello, Davy Byrne, Brian Howard and Philly McMahon off the bench. So if things aren't even going too well for them, they've got great backup. What do you think in an overall sense? I'm not sure how much of the other games you saw over the weekend, but Donegal, they look like raging hot favourites going into the Ulster final. Cork will be very heavy favourites against Tipperary, and of course Dublin will be huge favourites against your own county Meath. Mayo, they beat Galway, probably somewhat unconvincingly given how much ball they had and how many chances they had. But in a broad sense, who do you feel is the favourite at this stage?
Favourite for the All Ireland? Look, I'd probably stick with Dublin. But I think Donegal are the team that are going to ruffle their feathers or possibly beat them. Like I'm saying, I still think Dublin can be caught. I think the Donegal, again, athletically, physically, they have different styles of play. They can go ultra defensive. They can run the ball. They can kick it in long. To Michael Murphy and to McBrearty, they have a lot of options. They have a good bench. I'm not so sure about Mayo. As you said, I think Galway will be kicking themselves had chances. Shane Walsh kicked some brilliant scores. Missed a free or two that he'd be disappointed with, but that was real topsy-turvy game. And I don't know about Mayo, but it could be just a mad year that Mayo might, live in hope and could do something. Tip Cork, I wouldn't write off Tip. I really wouldn't. Cork might think that could be Cork's All Ireland beating Kerry, and they might take their eye off the ball. Unlikely, but it might happen. And Tip always fancy themselves against Cork and have beaten them in championship and won't fear them in any way, shape or form. But I suppose to answer your question, I think Donegal are the team that will put it up to Dublin and give them the best game, I suppose, in my opinion.